The golden California sun beat down on the emerald field as 19-year-old Taylor Martinez dribbled the soccer ball with practiced ease. Before we continue, let me know in the comments where you're watching this video from. Her ponytail swung in rhythm with her swift movements, a blur of motion as she weaved between her teammates during the most crucial game of the season. The crowd's cheers filled the air, a cacophony of excitement that seemed to pulse through Taylor's veins, driving her forward with each step. As she approached the goal, time seemed to slow. Taylor could hear her own heartbeat, feel the rough texture of the ball beneath her feet, and sense the presence of the opposing team's defenders closing in. With a burst of speed, she maneuvered past the last obstacle, her eyes locked on the goal. The goalkeeper tensed, ready to spring into action. Taylor drew back her leg, channeling all her strength and skill into this one perfect shot. But as she began to swing, something changed. The world tilted sideways, the cheers of the crowd fading to a dull roar in her ears. Taylor blinked, trying to clear the sudden fog that had descended over her vision. Her legs, usually so strong and dependable, felt weak and unsteady. She stumbled, the ball rolling away forgotten as she struggled to maintain her balance. "Taylor," she heard her name called, as if from a great distance. It was Mia, her best friend and teammate, concern evident in her voice. "Are you okay?" Taylor tried to respond, to reassure Mia that she was fine, but the words wouldn't come. The world spun faster, colors blurring together in a dizzying whirl. She felt her knees buckle, the soft grass rushing up to meet her as darkness encroached on the edges of her vision. The last thing Taylor heard before losing consciousness was the collective gasp of the crowd, a sound of shock and fear that seemed to echo across the field. Then, silence. When Taylor opened her eyes, the familiar sights and sounds of the soccer field were gone, replaced by the sterile white walls and steady beep of hospital machinery. Confusion washed over her as she tried to piece together what had happened. The last thing she remembered was the game, the ball at her feet, the goal in sight. How had she ended up here? As her vision cleared, Taylor became aware of the figures surrounding her bed. Her parents, their faces etched with worry, stood to her right. Her mother, Elena, clutched her hand tightly, as if afraid to let go. To her left was Coach Mark Stevens, his usual commanding presence subdued by concern. And there, at the foot of the bed, was Mia, still in her grass-stained uniform, her eyes red-rimmed from crying. What happened?" Taylor managed to croak out, her throat dry and scratchy. Her father, Robert, stepped forward, his strong hand gently squeezing her shoulder. "You collapsed on the field, sweetheart. Gave us all quite a scare." The memories came flooding back, the dizziness, the weakness in her legs, the world tilting on its axis. Taylor felt a wave of embarrassment wash over her. She had let her team down, had failed at the most critical moment. "The game," she said, trying to sit up. "Did we—" "Don't worry about the game," Coach Mark interrupted, his voice firm but kind. "What matters is that you're okay." As if on cue, the door opened, and a doctor entered, clipboard in hand. Her expression was neutral, professional, but there was a hint of something in her eyes that made Taylor's stomach clench with apprehension. "Hello, Taylor," the doctor said, her voice gentle. "I'm Dr. Patel. How are you feeling?" "Confused," Taylor admitted. "A little dizzy still." "What's wrong with me?" "Doctor." Patel glanced at the others in the room before focusing back on Taylor. "We've run some tests to determine the cause of your collapse. Your blood work showed some unexpected results." Taylor's heart began to race, her mind conjuring up worst-case scenarios. Was it some rare disease? A career-ending condition? "Taylor, Dr. Patel continued, her voice softening further. "You're pregnant." The words hung in the air, heavy and unreal. Taylor stared at the doctor, certain she had misheard. Pregnant. It wasn't possible. She'd never. But even as denial rose in her throat, a small voice in the back of her mind whispered the truth. That night, 2 months ago, after the victory party, Jason, the charming graduate assistant from the athletics department, the drinks that had made her feel warm and reckless, the stolen kisses that had led to more. Taylor's world, so carefully constructed around her dreams of soccer stardom and academic success, began to crumble. She looked at her parents, seeing the shock and disappointment in their eyes, at Coach Mark, whose expression was unreadable, at Mia, who looked as stunned as Taylor felt. I don't understand," Taylor whispered, her voice breaking. "How can this be happening?" "Doctor," Patel explained the effects of early pregnancy on the body, how it could have led to her collapse on the field. But Taylor barely heard the words. Her mind was racing, trying to grasp the enormity of what this meant for her future. As the reality of the situation began to sink in, Taylor felt tears welling up in her eyes. All her hard work, all her dreams, were they all over now? She thought of the scholarship she might lose, the teammates who were counting on her, the future she had mapped out so carefully. "What am I going to do?" she asked, her voice small and scared, so unlike the confident athlete she had always been. Her mother moved closer, wrapping her arms around Taylor in a tight embrace. "We'll figure it out together, mi amor," she murmured, her own voice thick with emotion. "You're not alone in this." As Taylor clung to her mother, sobbing quietly, she couldn't help but feel that her life had irrevocably changed. The path she had been on, so clear and bright, now seemed shrouded in uncertainty. In the days that followed, Taylor found herself adrift in a sea of conflicting emotions. The hospital released her with instructions to rest and follow up with an obstetrician, but returning to her dorm room felt like stepping into a stranger's life. The soccer posters on the walls, the trophies lining her shelves, the stack of textbooks on her desk, all seemed to mock her, reminders of a future that was slipping away. News of her condition spread quickly through the campus grapevine, despite attempts to keep it private. Taylor found herself the subject of whispers and stares, her once admiring peers now viewing her with a mix of pity and judgment. She withdrew from social interactions, skipping classes and team practices, spending hours curled up in bed, trying to make sense of her new reality. It was on one such day, as Taylor lay listlessly scrolling through her phone, that a knock on her door roused her from her stupor. She considered ignoring it, as she had done with so many well-meaning visitors, but something, perhaps sheer boredom or a desperate need for connection, made her call out, "Come in." The door opened to reveal Coach Mark Stevens, his tall frame filling the doorway. Taylor sat up quickly, suddenly aware of her rumpled appearance and the mess of her room. "Coach," she said, surprise evident in her voice. I'm sorry I haven't been at practice. Mark held up a hand, silencing her apologies. "May I come in, Taylor?" She nodded, watching as he made his way to her desk chair, turning it to face her bed before sitting down. For a moment, neither spoke, the silence stretching between them like a physical thing. Finally, Mark leaned forward, his elbows resting on his knees. "I've been worried about you," he said, his voice gentle but firm. "We all have." Taylor felt tears pricking at her eyes and blinked them back furiously. She was tired of crying, tired of feeling weak and helpless. "I'm fine," she lied, the words sounding hollow even to her own ears. Mark's eyebrow raised slightly, a familiar expression that had often preceded a lecture on the field. But instead of admonishment, His next words caught Taylor completely off guard. "Did I ever tell you about my wife, Sarah?" he asked. Confused by this apparent non sequitur, Taylor shook her head. Mark's eyes took on a faraway look, as if seeing something beyond the cluttered dorm room. "Sarah and I met in college, much like you and your teammates. She was a star athlete too, track and field. Had dreams of making it to the Olympics." Taylor found herself leaning forward slightly, intrigued despite herself. "Our junior year, Sarah found out she was pregnant," Mark continued, his voice soft with memory. "It wasn't planned. We were young, scared out of our minds. She was sure it was the end of everything she'd worked for." A jolt went through Taylor at these words, so similar to her own thoughts. "What happened?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. A small smile played at the corners of Mark's mouth. "Well, for starters, we panicked. Considered every option, argued, cried, but in the end, Sarah decided to have the baby. And you know what? It wasn't the end. It was a beginning." He reached into his pocket, pulling out his wallet. From it, he extracted a small, worn photograph, which he handed to Taylor. It showed a younger version of Coach Mark, standing next to a beautiful woman in a cap and gown. In her arms was a toddler, beaming at the camera. "That's Sarah at her college graduation," Mark explained. 2 years later than planned, with our daughter Lily in her arms. She didn't make it to the Olympics, but she found a new passion in coaching, just like I did. And Lily, she's in medical school now, if you can believe it." Taylor stared at the photo, trying to reconcile this story with the tough, no-nonsense coach she thought she knew. "Why are you telling me this?" she asked, handing the picture back. Mark's expression grew serious. "Because I see in you the same fear and uncertainty I saw in Sarah all those years ago. And I want you to know that this isn't the end of your story, Taylor. It's a detour, yes, a challenge, absolutely. But it doesn't have to be the end of your dreams." For the first time since the hospital, Taylor felt a small flicker of hope in her chest. "But how?" she asked, gesturing around her room, at the life she thought she was losing. "How can I be a mother and still be me?" Mark leaned back in the chair, regarding her thoughtfully. "That's the beautiful thing, Taylor. You get to decide who you is going to be now. This pregnancy, it's not a full stop. It's just a comma in the sentence of your life. What comes after, that's up to you." As Mark's words sank in, Taylor felt something shift inside her. The overwhelming fear and despair that had consumed her began to recede, replaced by a tentative sense of possibility. She thought of all the times she'd faced challenges on the soccer field, how she'd pushed through exhaustion and self-doubt to achieve her goals. Could she apply that same determination to this new, unexpected journey? "I don't know if I'm strong enough," she admitted, voicing the fear that had been lurking beneath all her other worries. Mark's response was immediate and firm. "Bullshit," he said, the sudden profanity startling a laugh out of Taylor. "I've watched you push yourself harder than any other player on that field. I've seen you come back from injuries that would have sidelined lesser athletes. You are one of the strongest people I know, Taylor Martinez. This situation, it's just another opponent to outmaneuver." As Mark spoke, Taylor felt something awakening within her, the competitive spirit that had driven her all these years, the part of her that refused to back down from a challenge. She sat up straighter, squaring her shoulders as if preparing to step onto the field. "So what's the game plan, Coach?" she asked, a hint of her old confidence creeping into her voice. Mark's face broke into a wide grin, clearly pleased by this shift in her demeanor. "Well, first things first, we need to get you back in the game, so to speak. No more hiding out in here. You've got a team waiting for you, and I don't just mean on the soccer field." Over the next hour, Mark outlined a strategy that made Taylor's head spin with its possibilities. He spoke of modified training regimens that would keep her in shape safely during the pregnancy. of academic advisors who could help her adjust her course load, of support systems within the athletic department for student parents. With each suggestion, each solution to problems Taylor had thought insurmountable, she felt the weight on her shoulders lighten. "And there's one more thing," Mark said as he prepared to leave. "The position of assistant coach for the women's soccer team just opened up. I think you'd be perfect for it." Taylor's jaw dropped. "Me? But I'm just a sophomore, and well, you know." She gestured vaguely at her still flat stomach. Mark's eyes twinkled with amusement. "You're also one of the most tactically minded players I've ever coached. You see the field in ways that can't be taught. This way, you stay connected to the team, learn the coaching ropes, and have a flexible schedule that works with your new circumstances. What do you say?" The offer was unexpected, but as Taylor considered it, she felt a surge of excitement. It wasn't the future she had planned, but it was a future. One that still included soccer, still allowed her to be part of the team she loved. "I say, when do I start?" The words came out strong and sure, surprising even Taylor herself. As Mark left, promising to return with more details about her new role, Taylor looked around her room with fresh eyes. The posters and trophies no longer seemed to mock her. Instead, they stood as reminders of her strength, her ability to overcome obstacles. She picked up her phone, ignored for days, and saw the dozens of messages from teammates and friends, not judgment or pity, but concern and support. With trembling fingers, she opened the team's group chat and typed out a message. "Hey everyone, I'm ready to talk. Can we meet?" The responses were immediate and overwhelmingly positive. As Taylor read through them, tears filled her eyes once more. But this time, they were tears of gratitude and determination. She placed a hand on her stomach, the first time she had consciously acknowledged the life growing within her. "All right, little one," she whispered. "Looks like we've got a new game plan. You and me, we're going to rewrite the playbook." As she stood to get ready for the team meeting, Taylor caught sight of herself in the mirror. The girl who looked back at her was changed. There were shadows under her eyes, worry lines that hadn't been there before. But there was also a new resolve in her gaze, a strength that came from facing her fears head-on. She wasn't the same Taylor who had collapsed on that soccer field. She was someone new, a fighter, a survivor, a mother-to-be. And as she stepped out of her room for the first time in days, head held high, she knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, she would face them with the same determination that had carried her through every game, every practice, every obstacle she'd ever encountered. The future was uncertain, yes, but it was also full of possibilities, and Taylor Martinez was ready to embrace them all. The team meeting was held in the locker room, a place that had once been as familiar to Taylor as her own bedroom, but now felt strangely foreign. As she pushed open the door, the chatter inside immediately ceased. 20 pairs of eyes turned to her, a mix of concern, curiosity, and uncertainty evident in their gazes. For a moment, Taylor froze, the weight of their attention threatening to overwhelm her newfound resolve. But then, from the back of the room, Mia stood up. Without a word, she crossed the distance between them and enveloped Taylor in a fierce hug. It was as if a dam broke. Suddenly, Taylor was surrounded by her teammates, all talking at once, offering words of support and encouragement. "We've missed you, Cap," said Lisa, the team's goalkeeper. "Are you okay? We've been so worried," added Jen, a freshman who had always looked up to Taylor. As the initial surge of emotion subsided, Coach Mark called for order. The team settled onto benches and the floor, forming a circle with Taylor at its center. Taking a deep breath, she began to speak. "I owe you all an explanation," Taylor started, her voice shaky at first but growing stronger with each word. "As you've probably heard by now, I'm pregnant. It wasn't planned, and for a while, I thought it meant the end of everything. My place on this team, my future in soccer, My dreams. I was scared, and I'm sorry I shut you all out." She paused, looking around at the faces of her teammates, girls who had become like sisters to her over the past year and a half. In their eyes, she saw not judgment, but compassion and understanding. "But I've realized something," Taylor continued, her voice now ringing with determination. "This isn't the end. It's a new beginning. A challenge, yes, but one that I'm ready to face. And I hope I can count on all of you to face it with me." For a moment, silence reigned in the locker room. Then, Mia spoke up, her voice thick with emotion. "Taylor, you're our captain, our friend. Of course we're with you, whatever you need." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the team. Lisa, the goalkeeper, stood up. "Yeah, who's going to keep us in line if not you? Pregnant or not, you're still the best leader this team has." Coach Mark, who had been quietly observing from the sidelines, stepped forward. "Which brings us to our next point," he said, a hint of a smile on his face. "Taylor won't be playing for a while, but she's not leaving the team. I've asked her to take on the role of assistant coach." The announcement was met with cheers and applause. Taylor felt a warmth spread through her chest, the fear and isolation of the past few days melting away in the face of her team's unconditional support. As the meeting continued, plans were made. The team brainstormed ways to adjust their strategies to account for Taylor's absence on the field. They talked about setting up a schedule to help her with classes and doctor's appointments. Jen even suggested starting a team baby pool, which elicited laughter and immediately lightened the mood. By the time the meeting ended, Taylor felt a sense of purpose she hadn't experienced since that fateful game. As the team filed out, each player stopping to offer a hug or a word of encouragement, she realized that her world hadn't ended. It had expanded. Mia lingered behind, waiting until they were alone before speaking. "I'm sorry I didn't reach out more," she said softly. "I wanted to give you space, but maybe that was wrong." Taylor shook her head, reaching out to squeeze her friend's hand. "No, don't apologize. I needed time to process everything. But I'm glad you're here now." Mia's eyes shimmered with unshed tears. "So, Aunt Mia, has a nice ring to it, don't you think?" Taylor laughed, the sound slightly watery but genuine. "The best ring. This kid is going to have the most amazing extended family." As they left the locker room together, Taylor felt a shift in her perspective. The campus around her, which had seemed so hostile and judgmental just days ago, now appeared full of opportunity. She noticed a flyer for a support group for student parents and made a mental note to check it out. The future, which had seemed so bleak, now shimmered with possibility. That night, as Taylor lay in bed, her hand resting gently on her stomach, she thought about the journey ahead. It wouldn't be easy. Balancing pregnancy, studies, and her new coaching role would be a challenge unlike any she'd faced before. But for the first time since she'd learned of her pregnancy, she felt ready to face it. "All right, little one," she whispered into the darkness. "Looks like we're in this together. Your mom's got a lot to learn, but I promise you this, we've got a whole team behind us, and we're going to show the world what we're made of." As she drifted off to sleep, Taylor's dreams were no longer haunted by fears of failure and lost opportunities. Instead, she dreamed of soccer fields and classrooms, of graduation gowns and coaching clipboards, of a future where she could be both a mother and the person she'd always aspired to be. It was a future she was ready to fight for, one step at a time. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of activity as Taylor adjusted to her new reality. Her first task as assistant coach was to help the team prepare for their upcoming match against their biggest rivals, State University. It was a game that, just a month ago, she had been looking forward to playing in herself. Now, she found herself on the sidelines, clipboard in hand, analyzing plays and offering strategic advice. The transition wasn't easy. There were moments when Taylor's heart ached to be on the field, her feet itching to feel the ball beneath them. But there was also a new kind of excitement in watching the game from this perspective, in seeing the bigger picture and helping her teammates improve in ways she'd never considered before. On the day of the big game, Taylor arrived at the field early, her stomach churning with a mixture of anticipation and morning sickness. As she made her way to the locker room, she overheard a conversation that stopped her in her tracks. "I can't believe they let her stay on as coach," a voice she didn't recognize was saying. "It's not like she can demonstrate plays or anything. What's the point?" Taylor felt her cheeks burn with a mixture of anger and shame. For a moment, all her old doubts came rushing back. Maybe they were right. Maybe she was fooling herself, thinking she could still contribute to the team in this state. But before she could spiral further, another voice chimed in, Jen, the freshman who had always looked up to Taylor. "Are you kidding me?" Taylor sees the game in a way none of us do. Pregnant or not, she's the best strategist we have. We're lucky to have her. Warmth flooded Taylor's chest, chasing away the chill of self-doubt. She took a deep breath, squared her shoulders, and walked into the locker room with her head held high. The game was intense from the start. State U came out strong, scoring 2 goals in the first half. As the team huddled during halftime, Taylor could see the disappointment and frustration on their faces. This was her moment. "Listen up," she said, her voice carrying the authority she'd developed as team captain. "They think they've got us figured out, but we've got something they don't expect. Remember that new play we've been practicing?" The team nodded, a glimmer of hope appearing in their eyes. "Now's the time to use it. Mia, you're going to fake left, then pass to Lisa on the right. Lisa, as soon as you get the ball, send it long to Jen. Jen, you'll be waiting just outside the penalty box. They won't see it coming." As the team took the field for the second half, Taylor felt a flutter in her stomach, whether from the baby or from nerves, she couldn't tell. She watched with bated breath as the game resumed. It happened just as she had envisioned. Mia faked left, passed right to Lisa, who sent a beautiful long ball to Jen. Jen, perfectly positioned, took the shot. The ball soared through the air, seeming to hang there for an eternity before finally, beautifully, finding its way into the back of the net. The stadium erupted in cheers. Taylor jumped up, clipboard flying forgotten as she celebrated with the rest of the coaching staff. As Jen ran back to the sidelines, she sought out Taylor, enveloping her in a hug. "That was all you, Coach," Jen said, her face flushed with exertion and joy. The momentum had shifted. The team, bolstered by their success, played with renewed energy. By the final whistle, they had managed to secure a 3-2 victory. As the team celebrated on the field, Coach Mark turned to Taylor, a proud smile on his face. "Not bad for your first game as coach," he said, giving her a gentle pat on the back. "Not bad at all." That night, as the adrenaline of the game finally wore off, Taylor sat on her bed, her sociology textbook open but forgotten beside her. She pulled out her journal, a new habit she'd started since learning of her pregnancy, and began to write. "Dear baby," she wrote, the words flowing easily now. "Today, your mom helped win a big game, not by scoring goals or making saves, but by using her mind, by seeing the bigger picture. I think that's an important lesson for both of us. Life doesn't always go according to plan. Sometimes, we have to step back, see things from a new perspective, and find a different way to contribute. But that doesn't make our contribution any less valuable." She paused, her hand absently rubbing her slightly rounded belly. "I don't know what the future holds for us. I don't know if you'll love soccer as much as I do, or if you'll choose a completely different path. But I want you to know this. Whatever challenges you face, Whatever unexpected turns your life takes, you can adapt. You can find a new way forward, and you'll have me cheering you on every step of the way." As Taylor closed her journal and turned off the light, she felt a sense of peace settle over her. The road ahead was still uncertain, still filled with challenges, but for the first time, she felt truly excited about the journey. She was more than just a soccer player now. She was a coach, a student, a friend, and soon-to-be mother. And she was ready to embrace all of these roles to see where this new path might lead. In the quiet of her room, with the echoes of the day's victory still ringing in her ears, Taylor drifted off to sleep. Her dreams were filled with soccer balls and baby rattles, textbooks and coaching strategies, all blending together into a tapestry of possibility. And at the center of it all was a simple truth that she was only now beginning to understand. Life's greatest victories often come from our ability to adapt, to find strength in our vulnerabilities, and to redefine success on our own terms. As the weeks turned into months, Taylor's pregnancy became more visible, her belly growing rounder as the little life inside her developed. The campus, which had once felt like a minefield of judgment and gossip, gradually became a place of unexpected support and kindness. Professor Harris, her sociology teacher, approached her after class one day. "Taylor," he said, his voice gentle, "I've noticed you've been having trouble staying awake in class. Is everything all right?" Taylor felt her cheeks flush with embarrassment. She had been struggling with fatigue, often nodding off during lectures despite her best efforts to stay alert. "I'm sorry, Professor," she began, but he held up a hand to stop her. "No need to apologize," he said. "I remember when my wife was pregnant with our first. It's not easy balancing everything. I just wanted to let you know that if you need any accommodations or extra help, my door is always open." Touched by his understanding, Taylor found herself blinking back tears. "Thank you," she managed to say. "That means a lot." It wasn't just the faculty who surprised her with their support. The cafeteria staff started setting aside decaf tea for her, knowing her doctor had advised against too much caffeine. The librarian helped her find a quiet corner where she could study comfortably as her growing belly made sitting at the regular desks uncomfortable. Even some of the students who had initially been the source of whispers and stares began to come around. One day, as Taylor was struggling to carry her books and coaching materials across campus, a group of freshmen she barely knew rushed to help her. "Here, let us get that for you," one of them said, taking her heavy bag. "Where are you headed?" "The soccer field," Taylor replied, grateful for the assistance. "We've got practice in 20 minutes. "Cool," another freshman exclaimed. "We watched your last game. That strategy in the second half was brilliant." As they walked together, chatting about soccer and classes, Taylor felt a warmth spread through her chest. She realized that while some people might always judge her choices, there were many more who saw her strength, her determination, and respected her for it. On the soccer field, Taylor's new role as assistant coach continued to evolve. She found herself developing a keen eye for the nuances of the game, spotting patterns and opportunities that she might have missed as a player focused on her own performance. One particularly memorable moment came during a practice session. The team was working on a new defensive formation, but something wasn't clicking. Taylor watched from the sidelines, her brow furrowed in concentration. "Hold up," she called out, walking onto the field. "I think I see the problem." She began to explain her observations, using her hands to illustrate the movement she envisioned. As she spoke, she noticed the team listening with rapt attention, their eyes following her gestures. "You see," Taylor said, getting more animated, "if we shift the back line just a little to the left and have the midfielder drop back to cover this gap here." She moved to demonstrate, forgetting for a moment about her changed center of gravity. As she took a step, she felt herself losing balance. For a heart-stopping moment, She thought she was going to fall, but before she could, Mia was there, a steadying hand on her elbow. "Whoa there, coach," Mia said with a grin. "Maybe leave the demonstrations to us for now." The team burst into laughter, and Taylor joined in, one hand on her rounded belly. "Good point," she chuckled. "All right, Mia. You show them what I mean." As Mia demonstrated the move Taylor had described, the rest of the team watching closely, Taylor felt a sudden flutter in her stomach. She froze, her hand pressing against the spot where she'd felt the movement. "Taylor," Coach Mark had noticed her sudden stillness. "Everything okay?" A slow smile spread across Taylor's face as she felt another tiny kick. "Yeah," she said softly. "Everything's perfect. I think the baby approves of our new strategy." The team gathered around her, excitement on their faces. "Can we feel?" Jen asked eagerly. Taylor nodded, and soon she was surrounded by her teammates, their hands gently touching her belly, waiting for another kick. When it came, a collective "ooh" rose from the group. "Looks like we've got a future soccer star in there," Lisa joked. As practice resumed, Taylor stood on the sidelines, watching her team implement the new strategy. Her hand remained on her belly, feeling the occasional movements of the little life inside her. In that moment, the worlds she had feared would never coexist. Her love for soccer, her academic pursuits, and her impending motherhood seemed to align perfectly. That evening, as she sat in her dorm room working on a paper for her child development class, Taylor found her mind wandering. She thought about the baby growing inside her, about the team that had become her family, about the challenges she'd faced and those still to come. She opened her journal and began to write. "Dear baby, today, you made your presence known on the soccer field. Your little kicks reminded me that you're a part of this journey too. I used to worry that having you meant giving up my dreams, but I'm starting to see that you're not an obstacle to my goals. You're an inspiration to dream even bigger. I don't know what the future holds for us. Will you love soccer as much as I do? Will you prefer books to balls? Will you have your father's eyes or my stubborn determination? There's so much I don't know, so much I can't predict. But here's what I do know. You are loved, not just by me, but by a whole team of amazing women who can't wait to meet you. You have a grandma and grandpa who, after they got over their initial shock, have been my rocks through all of this. You have coaches and professors who have shown me that support can come from unexpected places. And you have me. I'm not perfect. I'm still figuring out how to balance everything, how to be a student and a coach and prepare to be a mom all at the same time. But I promise you this, I will always try my best. I will show you that it's okay to face your fears, to adapt when life throws you curveballs, and to redefine success on your own terms. We're in this together, little one. And together, I think we're going to do amazing things." As Taylor closed her journal, she felt a sense of calm settle over her. The future was still uncertain, full of challenges she couldn't even begin to imagine. But for the first time since that day, she collapsed on the soccer field. She felt truly, deeply excited about what lay ahead. She placed a hand on her growing belly and whispered, "All right, kiddo, let's show the world what we've got." With renewed energy, Taylor turned back to her textbook. She had a paper to finish, plays to strategize, and a whole life to prepare for, and she was ready for it all. As Taylor's due date approached, the campus buzzed with anticipation. Her pregnancy had become a unifying force, bringing together people from different corners of university life. The soccer team had taken to wearing pink armbands during matches in honor of their coach-to-be's impending motherhood. The sociology department, impressed by Taylor's dedication to her studies despite her circumstances, had started a scholarship fund for student parents. One crisp autumn morning, as Taylor waddled, There was no other word for it now, across the quad. She was stopped by a group of young women she didn't recognize. "Excuse me," one of them said hesitantly. "Are you Taylor Martinez?" Taylor nodded, curious about what they wanted. The girl who had spoken took a deep breath. "We just wanted to say, you're kind of our hero. The way you've handled everything, still staying in school, coaching the team. It's really inspiring." Tears pricked at Taylor's eyes as the other girls nodded in agreement. Pregnancy hormones had made her more emotional, but this moment would have moved her regardless. "Thank you," she said softly. "And that means more than you know." As the girls walked away, Taylor felt a familiar flutter in her belly. She placed a hand on the spot, smiling. "Did you hear that, little one? Looks like we're making a difference already." That afternoon, during what would turn out to be her last coaching session before the baby arrived, Taylor found herself reflecting on the journey of the past months. The team was running drills, their movements crisp and coordinated in a way that filled her with pride. Coach Mark sidled up to her, a knowing look in his eyes. "Penny for your thoughts," Taylor chuckled. "Just thinking about how far we've all come, not just me, but the whole team. Remember how worried we were about replacing me on the field?" Mark nodded, his gaze sweeping over the players. And now look at them. Adapting, growing, stepping up to fill the gap. Kind of like someone else I know. He gave Taylor a pointed look, his eyes twinkling. Before Taylor could respond, a sharp pain lanced through her abdomen. She gasped, doubling over. Mark's hand was immediately on her shoulder. "Taylor, what's wrong?" She looked up at him, a mixture of fear and excitement in her eyes. I think it's time." The next few hours passed in a blur. The team sprang into action, some calling for an ambulance, others gathering Taylor's things. Mia insisted on riding to the hospital with her, holding her hand and offering words of encouragement as contractions came and went. In the delivery room, surrounded by doctors and nurses, with her parents and Mia waiting anxiously outside, Taylor faced the greatest challenge of her life. The pain was unlike anything she had experienced, even worse than the time she'd torn her ACL during a particularly brutal match. But as she pushed, gritting her teeth against the pain, Taylor drew on every ounce of strength and determination she had cultivated over the years. She thought of every grueling practice, every late-night study session, every moment she'd wanted to give up but pushed through instead. "You're doing great, Taylor," the doctor encouraged. One more big push. With a final, monumental effort, Taylor gave everything she had, and then, suddenly, the room was filled with the strong, indignant cry of a newborn. "It's a girl," the doctor announced, placing the squirming, red-faced infant on Taylor's chest. As Taylor looked down at her daughter for the first time, the world seemed to fall away. All the fear, all the uncertainty of the past months melted into insignificance. Here, in this perfect little being, she saw every possibility, every dream, every challenge she'd ever faced reflected back at her. "Hello, little one," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "I'm your mom. We've got quite the adventure ahead of us." The baby girl, as if understanding, opened her eyes and looked directly at Taylor. In that gaze, Taylor saw a strength and curiosity that mirrored her own. Later, as Taylor rested in her hospital room, a parade of visitors came to meet the newest member of their unconventional family. Her parents cooed over their granddaughter, tears in their eyes as they marveled at how much she looked like Taylor as a baby. The soccer team arrived en masse, filing in quietly with balloons and stuffed animals. They gathered around the bed, their faces a mixture of awe and affection as they peered at the sleeping infant. "She's beautiful, Tay," Mia whispered, gently stroking the baby's tiny hand. "What's her name?" Taylor smiled, looking down at her daughter. "I've decided to call her Hope, because that's what she's given me." every step of this journey. As the team passed Hope around carefully, each taking a turn to hold her, Taylor was struck by the realization of just how much her life had changed in the span of 9 months. She had started this journey feeling alone and afraid, certain that her dreams were slipping away. Now, she was surrounded by love and support, her dreams not lost but transformed into something even more beautiful and complex. Coach Mark was the last to arrive, slipping into the room after the team had left. He approached the bed, a soft smile on his face as he looked at Hope. "Congratulations, Taylor," he said warmly. "She's perfect." Taylor nodded, unable to keep the pride from her voice. "She is, isn't she? I can already tell she's going to be a fighter." Mark chuckled. "With you as her mother, I'd expect nothing less." His expression grew more serious. "You know, when I first told you about my wife's experience, I hoped it would give you some comfort. But watching you these past months, seeing how you've handled everything, well, I think you've taught us all a thing or two about resilience." Taylor felt tears welling up in her eyes. "I couldn't have done it without all of you," she said softly. Mark shook his head. "Give yourself some credit, Taylor. You're the one who chose to face this head on. You're the one who showed up every day, who balanced school and coaching and preparing for this little one. That was all you." As Mark left, promising to check in on them tomorrow, Taylor was left alone with Hope. The hospital room was quiet, the bustle of the day fading into a peaceful evening. Taylor shifted Hope in her arms, marveling at how natural it felt to hold her. "Well, Hope," she whispered, "it's just you and me now. I won't pretend I have all the answers. There's going to be a lot of figuring things out as we go. But I promise you this, we're going to face whatever comes our way together, with strength and determination." She thought about the journey ahead, returning to classes, continuing her role as assistant coach, learning the ropes of motherhood. It would be challenging, no doubt. But as she looked at Hope, Taylor felt a surge of confidence. They had already overcome so much to get to this point. Whatever the future held, they would meet it head on. "You and me, Hope," Taylor murmured, placing a gentle kiss on her daughter's forehead. "We're going to rewrite the playbook, and it's going to be beautiful." As night fell outside the hospital window, Taylor settled back against her pillows, Hope sleeping peacefully in her arms. The road ahead was long and uncertain, but for the first time in her life, Taylor felt truly, completely ready for whatever it might bring. With Hope by her side, she knew that every challenge would be an opportunity, every setback a chance to grow stronger. This was just the beginning of their story, and Taylor couldn't wait to see how it would unfold. The weeks following Hope's birth were a whirlwind of sleepless nights, diaper changes, and a steep learning curve in the art of balancing motherhood with everything else. Taylor had faced tough opponents on the soccer field, tackled complex theories in her sociology classes, but nothing had quite prepared her for the relentless demands of a newborn. Yet, true to her nature, Taylor approached this new challenge with determination and creativity. She set up a study corner in Hope's nursery, poring over textbooks during late-night feedings. She brought Hope to team practices, the little girl becoming a fixture on the sidelines, bundled up in a baby carrier as Taylor called out instructions to the players. One particularly memorable day, about a month after Hope's birth, Taylor was in the middle of explaining a new defensive strategy to the team when Hope began to fuss. Without missing a beat, Taylor scooped her daughter out of the carrier, cradling her with one arm while she continued her explanation, using her free hand to diagram plays on the whiteboard. The team watched in awe, and when Taylor finished, there was a moment of silence before Mia spoke up. "Damn, Taylor," she said with a grin. "You make it look easy." Taylor laughed, bouncing Hope gently as the baby's cries subsided. "Trust me, it's not. But we're figuring it out together, aren't we, Hope?" As if in agreement, Hope cooed softly, her tiny hand wrapping around Taylor's finger. The following week brought another milestone: Taylor's return to classes. She had worked out an arrangement with her professors to attend most lectures virtually, but there were still some classes that required in-person attendance. On the morning of her first in-person class, Taylor stood in front of her dorm room mirror, Hope securely strapped to her chest in a baby carrier. She took a deep breath, straightening her shoulders. "Okay, Hope," she said, meeting her daughter's curious gaze in the reflection. "This is a big day for both of us. You ready?" Hope gurgled in response, drooling slightly on Taylor's shirt. Taylor couldn't help but laugh. "I'll take that as a yes." As they made their way across campus, Taylor was acutely aware of the stares and whispers that followed them. But where once those looks might have made her want to shrink away, now she held her head high. Each step felt like a statement. Yes, I'm a mother. Yes, I'm a student. Yes, I belong here. When she walked into her child development class, there was a moment of hushed silence as her classmates took in the sight of her with hope. Then, to Taylor's surprise, a smattering of applause broke out. Professor Chen, a kind-faced woman in her 50s, approached them with a warm smile. "Welcome back, Taylor," she said, before addressing Hope directly. "And welcome to you too, little one. I think you might be our youngest student ever." The class chuckled, and just like that, the tension broke. As Taylor took her seat, Hope contentedly snuggled against her chest. She felt a surge of gratitude for the accepting environment she found herself in. Throughout the lecture, Hope remained remarkably calm, only fussing once when she needed a diaper change. Taylor quietly excused herself, taking care of it efficiently in the restroom before returning to class. As she settled back into her seat, the student next to her, a young man named Alex, leaned over. "That was impressive," he whispered. "I can barely take care of myself, let alone a baby and keep up with classes." Taylor smiled, touched by his words. "It's definitely a challenge," she admitted. "But you'd be surprised what you can do when you have to." As the weeks turned into months, Taylor and Hope fell into a rhythm. It wasn't always smooth. There were nights when Hope wouldn't sleep, days when Taylor felt overwhelmed by the competing demands of motherhood, academics, and coaching. But for every difficult moment, there were triumphs that made it all worthwhile. There was the day Hope rolled over for the first time, right in the middle of a team strategy session, eliciting cheers from the entire soccer squad. There was the sociology paper Taylor wrote one-handed while nursing Hope, which earned her the highest grade in the class. And there was the moment, during a crucial game, when Taylor's strategic insight led to a game-winning play, prompting Coach Mark to lift her, and, by extension, Hope, into a celebratory hug. As Hope's first birthday approached, Taylor found herself reflecting on the incredible journey of the past year. She sat at her desk one evening, Hope sleeping peacefully in her crib nearby, and opened her journal. "Dear Hope," she wrote, her pen moving swiftly across the page. "Tomorrow, you turn 1 year old. It's hard for me to believe that a year has passed since you came into my life and changed everything. This year has been the most challenging, exhausting, and beautiful year of my life. When I first found out I was pregnant with you, I was scared. I thought having you meant giving up on my dreams. But you've taught me that dreams don't die. They evolve. You've shown me strength I never knew I had, resilience I never thought possible. Because of you, I've learned to see the world differently. I've learned that success isn't just about scoring goals or acing exams. It's about facing each day with courage and determination, about finding joy in small moments, about lifting others up even when you're struggling yourself. You've been my greatest teacher, Hope. You've taught me patience when you refused to sleep, perseverance when I had to study with you crying in the background, and pure, unconditional love every time you smile at me. As we celebrate your first birthday, I want you to know this. You are loved. Not just by me, but by a whole community of people who have supported us on this journey. Your grandparents, who babysit you while I'm in class. The soccer team, who have become your honorary aunts. My professors, who have shown understanding and flexibility. And so many others who have touched our lives this year. I don't know what the future holds for us, Hope. I don't know if you'll love soccer as much as I do, or if you'll prefer books to balls. I don't know what challenges we'll face or what triumphs we'll celebrate. But I do know this. Whatever comes our way, we'll face it together. You and me, Hope, we're a team, and there's no team I'd rather be on. Happy birthday, my brave, beautiful girl. Here's to many more years of learning, growing, and loving together. Love always, Mom. As Taylor closed her journal, she heard Hope stir in her crib. She went over, lifting her daughter into her arms. Hope blinked sleepily, then broke into a wide, gummy smile that never failed to melt Taylor's heart. "Hey there, birthday girl," Taylor whispered, pressing a kiss to Hope's forehead. "Ready for another adventure?" Hope giggled, her tiny hands reaching up to pat Taylor's face. And in that moment, Taylor knew with absolute certainty that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, mother and daughter, a team unbreakable. As the first rays of sunlight began to filter through the curtains, Taylor held Hope close, savoring the quiet moment before the day began. She thought about the birthday party planned for later, about the soccer game next week, about the finals looming on the horizon. But for now, in this perfect, peaceful moment, none of that mattered. All that mattered was this, a mother and her daughter, ready to take on the world, one day at a time. The day of Hope's first birthday dawned bright and clear, a perfect late summer day. Taylor woke early, excitement bubbling in her chest. She leaned over Hope's crib, watching her daughter sleep peacefully for a moment before gently waking her. "Good morning, birthday girl," Taylor cooed, lifting Hope into her arms. "Are you ready for your big day?" Hope blinked sleepily, then broke into a wide, toothy grin that never failed to melt Taylor's heart. As Taylor changed Hope's diaper and dressed her in a special birthday outfit, a tiny soccer jersey with MVP emblazoned on the back, she couldn't help but marvel at how much had changed in just 1 year. The party was set to be held on the soccer field, a fitting location for the little girl who had spent so much of her first year on the sidelines. As Taylor made her way across campus, Hope babbling happily in her stroller, she was struck by a sense of déjà vu. It was on this very path, a year ago, that she had walked to her first class with newborn Hope strapped to her chest, nervous and unsure. Now, as students and faculty called out birthday wishes to Hope, Taylor realized just how far they had come. Hope was no longer a source of whispers and stares, but a beloved fixture of campus life. When they arrived at the field, Taylor's heart swelled at the sight that greeted them. The entire soccer team was there, along with Coach Mark, Taylor's parents, and a collection of professors and classmates. Colorful balloons bobbed in the breeze, and a banner reading, "Happy First Birthday, Hope," stretched across the goalposts. As soon as they spotted the guest of honor, a cheer went up from the assembled crowd. Mia rushed forward, scooping Hope out of her stroller and spinning her around, eliciting delighted giggles from the birthday girl. "There's our little MVP," Mia exclaimed, planting a kiss on Hope's chubby cheek. "Happy birthday, sweetie." Taylor watched with a mixture of joy and amazement as Hope was passed from one loving arm to another. Coach Mark pretended to check Hope's biceps, declaring her ready for the starting lineup. Professor Chen from the Child Development Department offered Hope a soft, plush book, which immediately went into the baby's mouth. "Some things never change," Taylor laughed, gently extracting the book from Hope's grasp. She's been trying to eat knowledge since day one. As the party got into full swing, Taylor found herself overwhelmed by the outpouring of love and support. There were games adapted for a 1-year-old's capabilities, including a miniature soccer goal where Hope delightedly kicked a soft ball, cheered on by the entire team. A cake in the shape of a soccer ball was brought out, and everyone sang "Happy Birthday" as Taylor helped Hope blow out her single candle. In a quiet moment, as Hope contentedly smashed cake into her face, and hair, and clothes, Taylor's parents approached her. "Honey," her mother said, her eyes shining with unshed tears, "we are so proud of you." Her father nodded in agreement. "When you first told us about the pregnancy, we were worried. We thought it might derail your whole life. But watching you this past year, seeing how you've handled everything, you've amazed us, Taylor." Taylor felt a lump form in her throat. "I couldn't have done it without you both," she said softly. "Your support has meant everything." As the afternoon wore on, Taylor found herself standing on the sidelines, watching as Hope toddled unsteadily across the field, supported by Jen and Lisa. Coach Mark came to stand beside her, a thoughtful expression on his face. "You know," he said, his voice gruff with emotion, "in all my years of coaching, I've seen a lot of victories, championships, last-minute game winners, underdogs triumphing against all odds. But I've got to say, Taylor, what you've accomplished this year, that's the biggest win I've ever witnessed." Taylor felt tears prick at her eyes. "Thank you, Coach, for everything. I don't think I could have made it through this year without your guidance." Mark shook his head, a small smile playing at his lips. "You give me too much credit, kid. This was all you. Your strength, your determination. I just had the privilege of watching you soar." As the sun began to set, casting a warm golden glow over the field, the party started to wind down. Hope, exhausted from the excitement of the day, had fallen asleep in Taylor's arms. As the last of the guests said their goodbyes, Taylor stood in the center of the field, cradling her sleeping daughter. She thought back to that day a year ago when she had collapsed on this very field, thinking her life was over. How wrong she had been. This field, which she had once thought would be the site of her greatest triumphs, had indeed witnessed her most significant victory, but not in the way she had ever imagined. Looking down at Hope's peaceful face, smeared with cake frosting and pure happiness, Taylor felt a profound sense of gratitude wash over her. This journey had not been easy. There had been sleepless nights, moments of doubt, days when she felt she couldn't possibly balance it all. But standing here now, surrounded by the remnants of a celebration that symbolized not just Hope's first year of life, but Taylor's first year of motherhood, she knew that every struggle had been worth it. As she walked off the field, Hope snuggled close against her chest. Taylor felt a renewed sense of purpose. The future stretched out before them, full of possibilities and challenges yet to come. There would be more late nights studying, more juggling of responsibilities, more moments when she'd question if she was doing the right thing. But there would also be more firsts to celebrate, more milestones to cheer for, more moments of pure, unbridled joy. And she would face them all with the same determination and love that had carried her through this first transformative year. As they reached the edge of the field, Taylor paused, looking back at the place that had been the setting for so much of her journey. Softly, so as not to wake Hope, she whispered, "Happy birthday, little one. Here's to many more years of defying expectations and rewriting the playbook. Together." With that, Taylor turned and walked toward home, her steps sure and steady. She didn't know exactly what the future held, but she knew one thing for certain. Whatever came their way, she and Hope would face it as a team, and there was no team she'd rather be on. The days following Hope's birthday party were filled with a renewed sense of purpose for Taylor. The celebration had not only marked a milestone in Hope's life, but had also served as a powerful reminder of how far they had come and the incredible support system they had built around them. As Taylor settled back into her routine of classes, coaching, and motherhood, she found herself approaching each task with fresh energy and determination. The new semester brought new challenges, but also new opportunities for growth. One particularly memorable day came about a month after Hope's birthday. Taylor had just finished an intense practice session with the team and was reviewing game footage in the locker room, Hope contentedly playing with a soft soccer ball at her feet. Coach Mark entered, a thoughtful expression on his face. "Taylor," he said, taking a seat beside her, "I've been thinking. You've done an incredible job as assistant coach this past year. Your insights, your ability to connect with the players, your tactical knowledge, it's all been invaluable to the team." Taylor felt a warmth spread through her chest at his words. "Thank you, Coach. It means a lot to hear you say that." Mark nodded, then continued, "Which is why I wanted to run something by you. The university has approved funding for a full-time assistant coach position starting next season. I'd like to offer you the job." Taylor's jaw dropped. She looked from Mark to Hope, who had abandoned her ball and was now attempting to climb onto Taylor's lap. I don't know what to say," she stammered. Mark chuckled. "You don't have to decide right now. I know it's a big decision, especially with your studies and this little MVP to consider." He reached out to ruffle Hope's hair affectionately. "But I want you to know that the option is there. You've more than proven yourself, Taylor." As Mark left, Taylor sat in stunned silence, absently helping Hope onto her lap. A full-time coaching position. It was an opportunity she had dreamed of, but had always imagined would come years down the line, after graduation, after Hope was older. That evening, as Taylor put Hope to bed, her mind was still whirling with possibilities. She watched as her daughter drifted off to sleep, one tiny hand clutching the stuffed soccer ball that had become her favorite toy. "What do you think, Hope?" Taylor whispered. "Should Mommy take the job?" Hope, of course, didn't answer. But as Taylor watched her sleeping peacefully, she felt a sense of clarity begin to settle over her. This decision, like every other she had faced in the past year, wasn't just about her anymore. It was about both of them, about what was best for their little team of two. Over the next few days, Taylor threw herself into researching her options. She spoke with her academic advisor about how taking on a full-time job would impact her studies. She crunched numbers, looking at childcare costs versus her potential salary. She had long, heartfelt conversations with her parents and with Mia about the pros and cons. But in the end, the decision came down to a moment of quiet reflection. Taylor was sitting on the bleachers overlooking the soccer field, Hope babbling happily in her stroller beside her. As she watched the sun set over the campus, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and pink, Taylor felt a sense of peace wash over her. She thought about the past year, about all the moments of doubt and fear, but also about the incredible joys and triumphs. She thought about the little girl beside her, who had taught her more about strength and resilience than any coach or professor ever could. And she thought about the field stretching out before her, the place where her journey had begun in so many ways. It was here that she had first discovered her passion for soccer, here that she had collapsed and thought her dreams were over, and here that she had found a new dream, a new purpose. Taking a deep breath, Taylor made her decision. The next day, she walked into Coach Mark's office, Hope on her hip. Mark looked up from his desk, a questioning look in his eyes. "I'll take the job," Taylor said, her voice steady and sure. "On one condition." Mark raised an eyebrow. "And what's that?" Taylor smiled, bouncing Hope gently. "Hope comes with me to every practice, every game. She's part of this team, too." Mark's face broke into a wide grin. I wouldn't have it any other way, he said, standing up to shake Taylor's hand. Welcome aboard, Coach Martinez. As Taylor left the office, her heart felt light. She knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Balancing a full-time job with her studies and motherhood would be a challenge unlike any she had faced before. But as she looked down at Hope, who was beaming up at her with that irresistible, toothy grin, Taylor felt ready for whatever came next. They had already defied the odds, rewritten the rules, and created their own definition of success. Well, little one, Taylor said, pressing a kiss to Hope's forehead. Looks like we're starting a new chapter. You ready for our next big adventure? Hope responded with a happy gurgle, her tiny hand reaching up to pat Taylor's cheek. And in that moment, Taylor knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. Mother and daughter, coach and future star, an unbeatable team ready to take on the world. As they walked across the campus, the setting sun casting long shadows behind them, Taylor felt a sense of excitement for the future. It wasn't the future she had envisioned for herself 2 years ago, but it was a future full of love, purpose, and endless possibilities, and she wouldn't have it any other way. The transition into Taylor's new role as full-time assistant coach brought with it a whirlwind of changes. The days became longer, the responsibilities heavier, but with each passing week, Taylor found herself rising to meet every challenge with a determination that surprised even herself. Mornings now started before dawn, with Taylor carefully maneuvering around their small apartment, preparing for the day while trying not to wake Hope. By 6 a.m., they were often the first ones at the athletic complex, Taylor setting up for morning practice while Hope dozed in her playpen in the corner of the office. As the team began to arrive, sleepy-eyed and yawning, they would inevitably perk up at the sight of Hope, now toddling around with increasing confidence. It became a sort of morning ritual. Each player would stop to say hello to Hope, receiving a high five or a slobbery kiss in return. I swear, Coach, Mia joked one morning, Hope's better at motivating us than any pep talk. Who can slack off when those big eyes are watching? Taylor laughed, but she couldn't deny the truth in Mia's words. Hope's presence had become an integral part of the team's dynamic. On tough days, when spirits were low after a hard loss or a particularly grueling practice, it was often Hope's innocent laughter or her clumsy attempts to kick a ball that would lift the mood. Balancing coaching and academics proved to be Taylor's biggest challenge yet. Late nights became the norm, with Taylor poring over textbooks and writing papers long after Hope had been put to bed. There were moments of frustration, times when the weight of her responsibilities felt overwhelming. One particularly difficult evening, after a long day of practice followed by a grueling exam, Taylor found herself sitting on the floor of their apartment, surrounded by scattered papers and open books, fighting back tears of exhaustion. Hope, sensing her mother's distress, toddled over and plopped herself unceremoniously into Taylor's lap. "Mama sad?" Hope asked, her little face scrunched up in concern as she patted Taylor's cheek with a chubby hand. Taylor felt her heart melt, the stress of the day evaporating in the face of her daughter's innocent worry. "No, baby," she said, hugging Hope close. "Mama's not sad. Mama's just tired. But you know what? You make everything better." As she held her daughter, breathing in the sweet baby scent of her hair, Taylor felt a renewed surge of energy. This was why she was pushing herself so hard, why she was striving to excel in both her studies and her coaching. It was all for Hope, to provide her with a stable future and to set an example of perseverance and dedication. The semester progressed, and Taylor found herself not just surviving, but thriving in her multiple roles. Her unique perspective as a student, coach, and mother brought fresh insights to both the classroom and the soccer field. In her child development class, she often found herself drawing on real-life experiences with Hope to illustrate theoretical concepts. On the field, Her ability to multitask and think on her feet, skills honed through motherhood, translated into quick, effective decision-making during games. As the season progressed, the team's performance began to reflect Taylor's influence. Her strategic insights, combined with Coach Mark's experience, led to a string of victories that put them in contention for the conference championship. The night before the championship game, Taylor stayed late at the office, meticulously reviewing game footage and finalizing their strategy. Hope, who had long since fallen asleep on the small couch in the corner, stirred and mumbled, "Mama, home." Taylor looked at the clock, surprised to see how late it had gotten. She saved her work and went to scoop up her sleepy daughter. "Yes, baby," she whispered. "We're going home now. Big day tomorrow." As she walked across the now quiet campus, Hope a warm weight in her arms, Taylor felt a mix of nervousness and excitement for the upcoming game. But more than that, she felt a profound sense of gratitude. 2 years ago, she had thought her life was over. Now, she was on the cusp of achievements she had never dreamed possible. The next day dawned bright and clear, perfect weather for the championship game. The energy in the locker room was electric as Taylor and Coach Mark gave their final pep talk to the team. Hope, decked out in a miniature version of the team uniform, sat on Mia's lap, her eyes wide as she absorbed the excitement around her. As the team took to the field, the crowd erupted in cheers. Taylor stood on the sidelines. Hope balanced on her hip and felt a surge of pride as she watched her players take their positions. This was her team, her family, and no matter the outcome of the game, she knew they had already achieved something remarkable. The game was intense from the start, with both teams evenly matched. Taylor's voice was hoarse from calling out directions and encouragement. Hope, sensing the importance of the moment, watched the field with unusual focus, occasionally mimicking her mother's gestures and shouts. In the final minutes of the game, with the score tied, Taylor made a bold, tactical decision. It was a play they had practiced but never used in a real game, a risky move that could either win them the championship or cost them dearly. As she watched the play unfold, Taylor held her breath. Hope, picking up on her mother's tension, grew quiet, her little hands gripping Taylor's shirt tightly, and then, in a blur of motion and a roar from the crowd, it happened. The ball soared past the opposing team's goalkeeper and into the net. The stadium erupted, and before Taylor could fully process what had happened, she was engulfed in a sea of celebrating players. Amid the chaos of the celebration, Taylor felt a tug on her shirt. She looked down to see Hope, her face split in a wide grin, arms raised in a gesture that clearly said, "Up!" Taylor obliged, lifting Hope high above her head as the team continued to celebrate around them. In that moment, with the cheers of the crowd ringing in her ears and her daughter's joyous laughter joining the cacophony, Taylor felt a sense of accomplishment that went beyond winning a soccer game. Later that night, after the celebrations had died down and Hope was tucked into bed, Taylor sat on their small balcony, the championship trophy glinting in the moonlight beside her. She thought about the journey that had brought her to this point, the fears, the doubts, the countless moments when she had wondered if she was making the right choices. But as she looked back into the apartment, her eyes falling on Hope's sleeping form, Taylor knew with absolute certainty that every struggle, every late night, every moment of self-doubt had been worth it. This journey, unexpected and challenging as it had been, had led her to a life more fulfilling than she could have ever imagined. As the first light of dawn began to creep across the sky, Taylor made a decision. She pulled out her journal, the same one she had started when she first found out she was pregnant, and began to write, "Dear Hope, tonight, we won a championship. But as I sit here, watching you sleep, I realize that the real victory isn't the trophy sitting beside me. It's you. It's us. It's every step we've taken together on this incredible journey. 2 years ago, when I found out I was pregnant with you, I thought my dreams were over. I thought I had to choose between being a mother and pursuing my goals. But you, my sweet girl, taught me that dreams don't die, they evolve. Because of you, I've become more than I ever thought possible. I'm a mother, a student, a coach. I've learned to balance responsibilities I never imagined having. I've discovered strengths I didn't know I possessed. But more than that, I've learned what truly matters. Success isn't just about winning games or acing exams. It's about the love we share, the lives we touch, the difference we make in the world around us. As I look to the future, I'm filled with excitement. Not because I know what's coming. If there's one thing you've taught me, it's that life is full of wonderful surprises. I'm excited because I know that whatever comes our way, we'll face it together. You're going to grow up, hope. You'll have your own dreams, your own challenges, your own unexpected journeys. And when you do, I want you to remember this. You are capable of amazing things. You can rewrite the rules, defy expectations, and create your own path. Never let anyone tell you that you have to choose between your dreams and your responsibilities. You can have both. It won't always be easy, but it will always be worth it. And no matter what, remember that you have me. Just as you've been my strength these past 2 years, I'll always be yours. We're a team, you and I, and there's nothing we can't handle together. I love you, Hope, more than all the stars in the sky, more than all the blades of grass on every soccer field in the world. You are my greatest victory, my most precious gift, my forever MVP. Sweet dreams, my little champion. Love always, Mom. As Taylor closed her journal, she felt a sense of peace wash over her. The future stretched out before them, full of possibilities and challenges yet to come. There would be more games to coach, more exams to take, more milestones in Hope's life to celebrate. But whatever came their way, Taylor knew they would face it with the same determination, love, and teamwork that had carried them through these past 2 years. As the sun rose, painting the sky in brilliant hues of pink and gold, Taylor stood up and stretched. It was the dawn of a new day, the beginning of a new chapter in their story. And as she heard Hope stirring in her crib, Taylor smiled, ready to meet whatever adventures lay ahead. She walked into the apartment, scooping up her sleepy daughter. "Good morning, my little champion," she whispered, pressing a kiss to Hope's forehead. "Ready for another day?" Hope yawned and snuggled closer, her tiny hand gripping Taylor's shirt in a gesture that said more than words ever could. And in that moment, holding her daughter close as the new day began, Taylor knew that this love, this bond, this beautiful, unexpected life they had built together was the greatest victory of all. As they started their morning routine, Taylor hummed softly, her heart full of gratitude and hope. The journey hadn't been easy, and the road ahead would have its own challenges. But with Hope by her side, Taylor felt ready for anything. After all, they were more than just mother and daughter. They were a team, and there was no team stronger, no bond more unbreakable than theirs. The sun climbed higher in the sky, its warm light filling their small apartment. Another day was beginning, another opportunity to learn, to grow, to love, and Taylor and Hope were ready to embrace it all together. In the years that followed, Taylor and Hope's story would become a legend on campus, a tale of perseverance, love, and the incredible strength found in the bond between a mother and her child. But for Taylor and Hope, it was simply their life, a beautiful, challenging, unexpected journey that they navigated side by side, day by day, with love as their compass and each other as their constant. And so, as one chapter of their story came to a close, another began. The future was unwritten, full of possibilities and potential. But one thing was certain. Whatever came their way, Taylor and Hope would face it as they had faced everything else.